All right, it seems like in Japan, people just don't want to have kids, or at least that's what the Western media will make it out to be like. And in many respects, they're quite right in this. The Japanese population is declining at a rate much faster than experts had expected. Just today, a news article came out that made me scratch my head and left my mouth agape, like wide open in shock, that the population had decreased that much in a year. I honestly, I gotta be on. I have to say, I was not expecting that at all. So let me pull up the article. It was in Kyoto News today. And then while we're discussing that, I want to talk about the reasons why. It's not actually evident to people who don't live in Japan why the population is declining, why aren't Japanese having more kids. I've lived in Tokyo now since 2004. Before that, I lived out in the countryside of Japan. I lived in Fukushima, I lived in Hiroshima, which is actually a city. I lived in, Fujinomiya, which is a countryside town on the base of Mount Fuji. I've lived all over the country. I've traveled to all the prefectures multiple times, gotten a chance to make friends from everywhere, and I talked to a ton of people, and I asked them, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and I have Japanese friends. I used to have a yakiniku club where I would meet with actually, we had about 400 members. Most of them were Japanese, and we would talk about things like this. At the time, everybody was like in their 30s. Now, I went back into Facebook and took a look at a lot of the people's profiles. Now they're in their 40s. And the majority of them don't have any kids. Some of them got married, and they're just a couple that like to go out and drink and eat out and really take advantage of being single, which is something that you sometimes forget when you have kids. I am not one of these people who is causing the population crisis. We do have one son, and it's none of your business whether or not we're working on more, although some of you seem to like to ask that. But I do want to say that I do have some clues after living here for, I guess, like 27 years now, since 1998, on why this population decrease is going on. So I actually have a list of stuff here. The article is loading, so I want to go over why we think this is actually this rate is declining. And this is from ChatGPT. However, I'm going to go through this and fact check it or correct it based on my own experience and to see whether or not it's true. So why is Japan's birth rate falling so fast, and why are people choosing not to have children? The birth rate dropped to it's like 6.8% now. I think it was with 686,000 births in 2024. Okay, there's a number from the news article. It's a 5.7 drop from last year. That's incredibly high. All right. It was like I don't think the experts thought it would drop under 700,000 for another 10 years, and here we are at 686,000. 5.7% drop from last year. I don't see this going up next year, and more people are dying, which means that the population on the whole is. I thought Japan's population was 130 million. That's kind of what it was 10 years ago. It's actually 120 million. It's dropped 10 million people in something like 10 years, which is crazy. So obviously we're not replacing those that are departing us because of old age, those that were born in the 1930s and 40s. They're seemingly going, despite the fact that Japan has one of the longest lifespans in the entire world. We still are not replenishing those lives with enough babies. So let's figure out what the heck's going on here. So some of these I kind of agree with a lot stronger than others. So economic insecurity and employment challenges. This is very much true because a lot of people are leaving the countryside. You can see rural places are starting to decay. There's just the populations are declining all over the country. That's leading to poor infrastructure and no jobs. So nobody wants to work out in the country. Well, there's very few jobs, and a lot of them that are there are government jobs, okay? So the people are coming to the cities now, Tokyo, Osaka, prefectural capitals, to work. This means that there are less places for children. The houses are smaller, and this is what I experience here in Tokyo. There's less places for kids to play outside. You can't really play out in the streets. There's a lot more traffic. Parks are around, but they're kind of small. They're not not as fun as out in the countryside. And it's harder to make friends because people are a little bit more cautious. This is because of the insecurities of work and life out in the countryside. People come into the cities. And when you're in the cities, you're going to have less children because it's just harder to have children. And also, if you're in the city, you're probably working longer hours. So that this is an employment challenge. Women want to be, maybe not the same in the West. I've talked with a lot of Japanese women about this issue. I think that the West and the Me Too movement and women's, I think this is really important. But what I discovered that most women don't want to be, their dreams are still to have a family or to have kids, and they're just not finding husbands, let's just say, or they're waiting until too long to have kids. There's a lot of, we're going to discuss this more because I think this is in another number, but work has a big deal to do with this. And the move to the cities. I think we're going to get into it right here. Now, the higher cost of living and limited space is a problem because people are going to those urban areas. This is absolutely true. The cost for having children in Tokyo is much higher than out in the countryside. Demanding work culture. Now, in Japan, people don't start families unless they have a husband and a wife. You very rarely see single parents in Japan. They exist. I actually know several of them. But it's a lot rarer to have a single parent in Japan than you would in other countries. So when you have a father and a mother, the father will be working really long hours. Sometimes this makes it hard to even make the kids. I'm talking to friends that I talked to a lot of people about this. Sometimes they just don't have the time to make the kids. And I said, what kind of a marriage is this? You should be trying all the time. That's, I didn't want to get too much into it, but this is also an issue. Husbands that go out to work, I have someone in the family who works for an advertising agency, and he's working really long hours, including on the weekends. He doesn't get back until sometimes midnight. They have one child, and it's really hard for him to make the time to be a family unit. So there's not much of a demand to have more children because they can't accommodate the one that they already have. Papa's not around that much. So it's really hard for Japanese to have children when a father is working 70 to 80 hours a week at the office because of those corporate pressures. And the government's doing something about it. We'll talk a little bit about this in a second here. And I'll take some questions. I see some questions coming in here. Gender inequality and traditional roles I think it plays less of an issue than the West realizes, but it certainly is an issue. I know that and maybe women don't give the right answers to this, because when you ask women, like, what is your dream? All right, a lot of them say to start a family. And that's somewhat surprising. A lot of women don't want to become career women, but it's increasing. Actually, Japan really does need to have more women in the workplace. They need more of a diversity in thought and an approach, especially in a globalized world. But Japan is a more conservative and traditional culture, so I don't know. I'm not sure for this one how much the government is playing a part into it. I got to scroll back here. How much the government is playing into it, and how much the Western media plays into this, trying to change Japan. But Japanese women that I talk to, maybe the younger generation is different, that are in their 20s, but in the 30s, they dream about having a family and meeting the right person, which is the problem with number 5. And I think this is a massive one. People just aren't getting married. A lot of them don't. If you're living in the cities, there's a lot of distractions, and there's a lot of fun here. I got to be honest with you, because I'm somebody who didn't get married until I was 46. It happens. But I'm a guy, so it's a little bit different for me. I'm a guy who grew up in the 80s, so I can say that. But I think for Japanese women, they're getting married. They're getting married later, but Japanese men just aren't getting married at all. And I think I got friends who are in their 50s that have never been married and never want to get married. An extraordinary amount of friends. I have a female friend who's in her 50s, and she's never been married, and she loves her freedom. And I can't blame her, because she's having an amazing time. I'm sometimes jealous talking to her, and a very good friend of mine, talking to her and hearing about what she's doing. She's also a business owner, so she's extraordinarily busy. But people aren't getting married. And if you don't get married, you don't have kids in this country. And if you don't have kids, then, well, we're seeing this. So I think it's a direct relationship between the two. This might be one of the most strongest reasons why Japan is not having more kids. Urbanization has led to the concentration of population of the cities. I think we talked about that. This is true to a great, this plays a really strong part. And government initiatives and challenges. The Japanese government has implemented various measures to address. When the government gets involved, you know it's not really going to be something that's going to win the day. When the government gets involved, it's a little weird. When the city of Tokyo, and this is a true story, I think it's called the Futari story, Futari meaning two people, the Futari story dating app. When the government starts making a dating app, which they have, it's a little weird. I don't know if I want to be in a government database for, actually, I'm not talking about me because I'm off the market. Me and Matt Alt both said this in a recent episode on the main channel. But we're off the market, but I don't know if I would want to be in a government dating, but there's a lot of people that do want to get married, and it's just really hard. This is a social issue. I know that it's easy for people to hook up. This is a very sensitive thing. I can get in a lot of trouble talking about this. I wish Tokyo Sam was here, because he might know a little bit more about this. Now, I don't know if he would know a little bit more about this, but I know about it, but he's more easy to talk about it, I guess. That might be the best way to talk about it. But look, to get into a serious relationship, people have standards in Japan of who they're going to marry. Sometimes fooling around is not the case. I think getting married is a really hard thing to do for singles in Tokyo. I think this is where technology could be a thing, but there's like I don't know. I wish I had some other friends here to talk about this because they're a lot better at it than I am. Men and women, if you go out to like Roppongi or you go out to the clubs and you do clubbing stuff, that's like a very small percentage of the Japanese population that's into this hookup culture and stuff. They're probably the people who do get married, actually. But I'd say it's like the 80 to 90% that don't go out. There's a lot of people who are very shy, that are like living inside their own bubble, that don't talk to anybody, that are not really good conversationalists because they live inside of their bubble. They can't go out on a date because they don't know what they would say. They're very uncomfortable about it. I've been on dates that were set up for me years and years ago and they were awful dates because the person I was talking to, I tried everything to get some kind of, in Japanese, to get a conversation going. I just can't do it. Cracky jokes. They're just antisocial people. So, I mean, it's really hard. I think that's where technology comes in. And, 15 years ago, we didn't have this kind of stuff. Apps only existed as far as the smartphones revolution in 2008. So the government's trying to do something about it. I think it might do something, but it's hard to say at this point. But Japan's declining birth rate is really hard. I asked the AI bot a little bit more on this. So I'm kind of confirming what they're saying here, and I'm going to add a little bit more to it in a second. I think I've added too much, to be honest with you. What is Tokyo doing to increase the birth rate? The Futari, that's what it's called, the government-backed dating app. I'd make an episode on it if I were single, but I'm not. I'm not going to touch it. It's just going to lead to trouble. But I think you could dig in and see more. This 4-day work week for government employees is super interesting to me. I know that that's not going to happen in the corporate culture. The government has to be a leader here. I guess it's leading by example. And this started last month. I don't have any friends. Well, I do. I haven't been in touch with a lot of them because when you get married and have a kid, you kind of lose touch with a lot of your friends, especially the first several years, I've noticed. But I mean, I'm trying to get back into touch with a lot of people, and I have friends that are in the government. And I wonder if they're taking advantage of this, the 4-day work week. Places like, ad agencies, I don't want to name anybody in particular, Dentsu, big corporations like UFJ, Mitsubishi, Tokyo Bank. These are institutions that are really conservative and traditional, that want to keep things the way they are. The reason why is because the bucho, or the president of the company, he grew up through this system, and when he got to the top, he wants this system to continue. Having change is not easy. When you have a boss that wants to have their spending budget and want to have their low workers go out and drink with them like he had to, even though he didn't like it either. So maybe in the next generation, this culture will change, but I've been out drinking with too many executives that had, this kind of thinking where they make the underlings drink and inconvenience their lives because their lives are inconvenienced. So I don't know if that's going to change. I can't even say that that's exactly the reason why, but from my experience, that's probably why. One of the reasons anyways. And the community engagement and support programs. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I want to bring the article to the forefront. Let's see if I can do that here. Shout out to Cobra Bebop. You would think that a country with so many, hold on a second, it's brighter, with so many love hotels would not have this problem. It's not the love hotels that is the problem, Cobra Bebop. People, I don't know, I don't want to get into it because it gets into politics and it makes Japan look bad and it's not a positive thing. But, there's a lot of love going on, but, if it's an unwanted pregnancy, there's nothing to stop it. People just do that, and it's a secret thing. It's not a good, it's a choice. It's such a complicated thing. I don't want to get into it, but when it does happen, if you're not married, probably it's not continued, right? It's a really sensitive topic. Why isn't this article loading? It's supposed to have loaded up by now. 16 minutes it hasn't loaded up. Work balance life is a big deal about it. Discreet, yeah. I think you have to be discreet. Love hotels are an issue here, but it's usually for cheating, right? Love hotels are for cheating or hooking up, people who shouldn't be doing it, right? And also, like, love hotels are interesting because if you look around here, and this problem is not exclusive to Japan. It is also in China and in Korea. In fact, China has a population, but Japan's is pretty harsh. A lot of these places here are apartment buildings. There's a couple across the way there. So I gotta be honest with you, when you live out in the countryside in particular, some of the older buildings, the walls are like made of paper, all right? If you're doing it, I feel like Beavis and Butthead here. If you're doing it with some, girl, wife, you don't want your neighbors hearing it. And if you've got kids already, or you're living with your in-laws, you don't want your in-laws hearing you doing it. So you go to the love hotel. So there were a lot of love hotels. I'm showing an apartment building. Obviously you can't see no action going on in there. I did double negative because I am extremely nervous talking about this kind of stuff. Like, my hands are shaking. Sorry. You can see me again as I struggle through this here. Love hotels have a distinct reason in Japan. Actually, if you're a traveler here and you can't find a hotel, this is where you would go. At around 8 p.m., you could stay for the night for a reasonable price. And you get usually a game system like Nintendo or Switch or whatever. And you get a jacuzzi, and you get sometimes a rotating bed. There's all sorts of amenities that you get at a love hotel, including you could call them and get a beer delivered to you as well. They're kind of neat. I've stayed with them traveling around because, last minute you can't find a hotel. That's where you would go. They call it a stay. Or a rest. If you stay, it's usually for, wait, hold on. A rest is for 2 to 3 hours, or 3 to 4 hours, and a stay is all night. That's right. So the price is pretty competitive if you stay the rest of the night at a love hotel in Japan. All right, let's look at the article here. It just finished loading up here. This came out today, and this shocked me. Birth rates fall below 700,000 for the first time, and I think deaths are like 1.8 million. So just put that in perspective, okay? And of course they have a cute little baby. How could you not want to have a kid? How could you not want to have a kid? The number of births in Japan fell below 700,000 for the first time in 2004, declining 5.7% from the previous year of 686,000. Government data showed Wednesday, highlighting a continued trend of delayed marriages and childbirths. Japan's total fertility rate, the number of children a woman is estimated to rear in her lifetime, also fell to a record 1.15. That's not even Tokyo, that's in the whole country, down from 2.0. That's incredibly low. Both the numbers of births and fertilities have decreased for 9 consecutive years. This is incredible. The pace, and I'm still below our pace. I have not replaced ourselves. We have not replaced ourselves. That number is really high. Super Mr. Crazy Man, thank you. Young people focus on work instead of having kids. That's definitely part of it. That's definitely part of it. Both the number of births and the fertility rate have decreased. The full year figures include babies born to foreign nationals. So, excludes that. So, kids born here, foreign nationals would not have a Japanese citizen, although Leo is a Japanese citizen. The number of marriages, a key factor influencing birth trends, increased for the first time. Hold on a second. The number of marriages increased for the first time by 10,000. That's actually a positive sign. And so the government initiatives like that dating app perhaps are working. I mean, how long can men and women wait? But they're probably getting married in their 40s. I got to be honest with you, those marriages might not be in the birthing years. A total of 1.6 million people died, the highest number in post-war period. So those deaths are going to be are going to continue to increase, maybe to 2 million in the coming years, while the natural decrease, deaths minus births, reaching a record. I can't quite see that number. It's behind the iPhone. 919,000, marking a decline for the 18 straight years of declines. It's under 1 million. Every year, Japan's losing 1 million. Japan and increasing. Japan's birth rate has been falling since hitting a peak during the second baby boom of 1973. What? 2.9 million births were recorded then. The figure fell below 1 million in 2016 and below 800,000 in 2022. That is incredible. Just the population is not being replaced. That maybe there has to be a silver lining with that, having less people, food scarcity, all this other stuff. Right now, there's not enough rice in Japan. We have a rice shortage. Since medical institutions can set, okay, I kind of scrolled too far here. So one of the issues is the cost of the childbirths. Medical institutions can set their own prices for normal. Oh, so this is another article. So I kept this going here. The out-of-pocket payments associated with childbirth, possibly from April of next year. So you don't have to pay for childbirth. So if Kanai and I have another child, everything will be totally free, except we're going to talk about that, which is another issue. One proposed approach in the policy approved Wednesday by a panel of experts, this was in April, involves fully covered expenses for normal deliveries under the public medical insurance program. I think I paid about $5,000 for Leo's birth out of pocket, and I think I got reimbursed for some of that from the government. Normal childbirth currently falls outside of the scope of insurance, as it is not regarded as a medical condition like illness or injury. Epidurals, in which labor pain is reduced, are expected to remain outside the coverage. This is a big problem. I'm going to talk about this in a second here. Kanai got an epidural, and we talked about it, and I didn't care if she got it or not. It's common in the West. It's not common in Japan. Since medical institutions can set their own prices for normal deliveries, childbirth costs in the countries have largely differed among prefectures. Tokyo's kind of expensive, but they didn't reimburse some of it. A lump sum payment of $500,000 from the government is currently being given for each childbirth. We paid more than that, so there was definitely out-of-pocket expenses. The average cost nationwide for normal birth is $518,000. Figures from the Health, Labor, and Welfare Ministry. If childbirth becomes qualified for public coverage, a unified price will be set nationwide, but obstetricians have expressed concerns that the move could cause financial strain for medical institutions due to reduced revenue. This is very true. And the articles continue. I mean, you can dig deeper, and then you're going to see the record decline for Japanese nationals. This is where shocked me the most. You see, there's a lot of people here, but they ain't Japanese. Maybe from 120.3 million is the population of Japan. I thought it was 130. I was 10 million people off. It's just crazy because we're losing so many people. So the article lays out where we are right now. It's concerning. Look, if I got to be honest with you, the cost for having a child here is really cheap compared to the United States, all right? But it's a lot more expensive than other countries. It's somewhere in between. I know that the United States having a kid can be really expensive if you don't have it covered in your insurance, and sometimes it's not. The hospital stay is ridiculous often in the United States. In Japan, look, people aren't having many kids. You'd think that they'd be using the hospitals for having more deliveries, but the thing is, a lot of those hospital beds are taken up from people in the last days of their lives, not people in the beginning of their lives, and that's just a reality here in Japan. Now, look, there's an X factor to all of this that is not being discussed. I could take a lot of heat from Japanese for saying this, and this comes from talking to a lot of Japanese, late nights drinking over the last 20 some years that I've been here. I hate saying it. I remember I sat down at a local izakaya. It was like not a standing bar, just a bar for eating dinner. I used to go there about 15, 20 years ago. And one of the local police officers came and he sat down next to me. And he noticed I didn't have a wedding ring, and he asked me if I was married. I didn't know the guy, and I said, no, I'm not married. And he said to me, he said, men your age are much better people when they get married. I'm like, totally, you would never say this in the West. I took it in stride because I'm the one who's a foreigner here. I don't know if it was normal to say that. Apparently it's not. It's kind of weird. But maybe he was right. But he was a married guy. I guess he'd been married for a few years. It just had a child. I got to know him a little bit. But the first thing he said was, why I wasn't married. And I was in my late 30s at the time, or mid 30s at the time. And I said, it's not, I just haven't found the right person, or maybe I'm too picky. And we had this discussion here. But the societal pressures sometimes are too much, and people just drop out of it. Right? Divorce is costly, which is why people don't want to get married. I'm getting into this. This is such a big X factor here. The divorce rate in Japan is going up. A lot of young people know people who have gotten divorced. So people don't want to get married because they've known so many people who got divorced. I know somebody who is going through their second divorce right now. Japanese to Japanese. This isn't a foreigner. Japanese woman, she had a child with another father, got married to another guy, is actually pregnant with the guy's baby, and she's talking about getting a divorce because she just doesn't like him or doesn't get along with him. She's pregnant with the guy's baby. And maybe he's not a good guy. I don't know the guy, all right? But now she's going to get a divorce. The second time, she's going to have 2 children from 2 different people and just be a single mother. This is the reality of people in their 30s now in Japan. Everybody knows somebody who's been divorced who had a bad time getting married, and they're saying, don't get married. This is the X factor. It's not, and this isn't isolated to just Japan. A lot of people are. And I got to be honest, I'm married. It's not easy. I'm also, closer to the end than I am the beginning. So I'm a realist about it. If I get into an argument, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not getting a divorce. I'm fine with it. I try my best to make up for it. I usually will get angry for about 10 seconds. I'll get angry for about 10 seconds. I might raise my voice, and I check myself because it's not that important. I let it go. It's harder for my wife, and then it can get prolonged, and it's probably my fault. If you look in the mirror, probably my fault. I don't know. But fights and disagreements and arguments happen. They happen more often because of kids too. Like, what do we do with Leo? Do we put him into an international school? This is the X factor here. Do we put him? So Japanese know a lot more people that are divorced, and it's not easy to raise kids when you do have kids because the Japanese system is so complicated. The education system is like 19th century, all right? It's like 19th century. Forget tablets and technology, just the system. The teacher, and I taught parents. I was in the eikaiwa industry, so it's not the public school system, but I talked to the parents and I talked to the kids. A lot of them were in high school. And I said, what is your school like? All right. They all go to Juku. Juku is a cram school. So they don't even learn in the schools that they're at. Complete waste of time in many respects. There's some fun stuff. They get to know a system that's totally from the 19th century. So the teacher teaches you. The teacher is senpai, kohai. Kohai doesn't say a word. You don't raise your hand if you don't understand. Teacher, I don't understand. You don't do that in Japanese schools normally. Maybe you do now, I don't know. But this is going back to 10 years ago, and I don't think that the schools have changed that much in the last 10 years. So then what you don't learn in the school, you got to ask the person next to you who probably doesn't know the answer. So instead of asking the teacher when you don't understand something, you ask the student next to you. That's your responsibility. And then the parents have to pay out of pocket for these cram schools called juku, which can be like several $1,000s a year. So the kid goes after his school, after his club, he'll stay until like 6 or 7 p.m. cramming for the stuff he should have learned in school. I wouldn't, if I went through this system, I'm not happy about it. I'm not upset. I'm just raising my voice more for dramatic purposes. I know how entertainment works. It can be a little annoying, but if I didn't show a sense of urgency here, but there should be, and I'm upset about it because I don't want my son to have to go and waste his time at school if he's got to go to another school to learn what he should have learned in the school. Does that make sense to you? So a juku, J-U-K-U, is a cram school. There are businesses, multi-billion-dollar companies that do this. It's so bad. So they kind of know the curriculum and what's going to be on the tests, and they have another teacher whose job it is to teach what should have been taught at the schools. But the teachers are at such a high position in society, which maybe is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not so sure. That they're not questioned by the students. And if they're not questioned by the students, how do the students learn critical thinking? How do the students learn how to be leaders, to question stuff? In the end, it works out because we just saw Japanese have the highest IQ of any other country in the world. Japanese are very smart. It is a really hard system though. Think about it. You are a kid. You got to take an exam, one exam. All right, I took the SATs when I was a junior in high school, all right? I was somewhat older, I could get it. Think about an elementary school kid who's got to take an exam, whereas his whole life will be set up if he does well or doesn't do well on this one exam. All right? This is like it's like harsh reality, man. You don't do well, you go to the dumb kid school. If you do really well, you go to the smart school. So they kind of will separate the not so smart and the smart because this school is famous for having not so smart kids and the kids know. So it's like a social thing. Oh, the kids with this color school uniform, they're not really the smart kids. They kind of didn't do well on this test, so they're going to this special school. And then there's another school where the kids are a little bit brighter and they put the kids into there. So that's my understanding of the Japanese school system. So if you go through this, do you really want to have kids and make them go through that? When you're having fun now as an adult? I don't know. It's kind of like an X Factor. So everyone knows somebody who's divorced. The school system is kind of a disaster. I don't see on the horizon any changes to it. Juku is an issue where people are spending out of pocket thousands of dollars to relearn the stuff that they should have learned in school. Parents don't want, and if you're a parent, do you want to spend thousands of dollars to put your kid through a juku, which they should have learned in school? No, you want to go out in nice restaurants and have some fun. So a lot of my married friends just want to go out to restaurants and have some fun. You don't have to tip at the restaurants, so they're not as expensive as they are in the West. It takes off the pressure of having to tip the servers, which is why I think I don't eat a lot out in the US anymore because I don't know how much I should freaking tip. Sometimes I forget to tip if I go out, so it's better not to eat it at all outside. Tipping's an awful, has gone over the edge in the West, but in Japan you don't have that, so people like to go out and eat all the time. So there's a lot of jobs and a lot of stuff going on in the food here. It's great. Is it like after school tuition? It really is. You first of all, getting into the school is really hard. You get placed into it. You can go to private school. You can go to international school. That's what I'm talking about with my wife right now. Some of the stuff I didn't really think about. He could go to a kindergarten next year. Leo could. He could have gone this year. But we went into the Hoikuen system because he's there until 5 p.m. with his friends, and I want him to play and learn. But when you go into a Japanese school, you go into a very regimented system, which is Japanese society, which is not a bad thing. But the way that the education system is really, it's like so backwards. If they just taught the kids and allowed them to critically converse with the teacher and learn in a more natural way, then kids would be able to learn at a much higher rate and not waste time. But what would the kids do at home? Most likely watch TV. So I don't know. Let's just say if the kid's at cram school until 7 p.m., that means he's not watching TV until 7 p.m. or playing video games until 7 p.m., in theory. So there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad behind it. Maybe there's some positives to the system. the way that when I talk to people who have kids that are now teenagers, even in Japan, video games is a problem. There's so many distractions now in the digital world. They can't put the tablet down. So parenting is a thing that you have to think a little bit more about than you should, maybe. And people know this because everybody knows somebody who has a kid. They know that they can't do the stuff that they have, so they don't want to have kids. So having a kid in the city should become easier and more fun. The parents have come over here, okay? I gotta tell you something. This is the thing that I'm struggling with. It's hard for me to see the chat. I'm gonna take some questions here, but it's very hard for me. It's a secret, okay? Don't tell anybody. So when you have a child in Japan, you have to be involved in the child's extracurricular activities and stuff, meaning you have to become friends with the other parents. I don't want new friends that much, really. I don't want to hang out with other parents that much, right? And a lot of them are real petty, and they want what's best for their kids. I don't want to hang out with these people, okay? And you have to be involved. And then you have to buy their uniforms and do all this stuff and in their associations. And the social pressure to get involved is really high. I don't feel it that much because I'm a foreigner. But, Kanai feels it. And you can see she's got to go to these functions. And oh, really? What? I don't want to go. And I'm sure that they're real nice people, but I don't know. But you got to do it. So I'm going to have to do it. I take it and I swallow it and I go ahead and do it anyways. I learn to like it, maybe. I'll learn to like it. But I don't want to have new friends. I want to do my work. I want to play with my family. I want to cook and eat. I want to do stuff. I want to travel. I don't want to go to some association meeting. Japan's a country that just don't go. Math writes in here. See, but, all right, this is the thing, okay? You think like that, and that's why you're Western. That's easy. But you can't do that in Japan. You can't just not go, because then you get a reputation, and the reputation is more important than the money. And if you have a reputation of being, a bad, then let's say if a crime happens, they're going to suspect you, because you're the one with the reputation. You don't like to hang out with anybody. Do you ever see the people get arrested on the TV? They go right to the neighbors. Oh, I've conversed with him in the elevator. I've known him before. He seemed like a reasonable guy, but he's just a little bit off. I don't want to be one of those off people. I don't want to get arrested either, because I don't do anything that I'd get arrested, but you just never know. Honestly, it's YouTube's fault I feel like this. It's really YouTube's fault, because freaking YouTubers are putting these police body cam videos on of what's going on in the United States. You see what's happening, and there's body cam footages, the way that they edit it up, it's like addictive. And when you watch one policeman body cam footage thing, that's all your feed gets. Policeman body cam footage of bad behavior, and then you see people getting arrested or tased for no reason, or people or Karens freaking out at the airport. How are there so many videos of that? So it's a societal thing. All right? You can't just not go. You got to go. All right? It's society. You cannot not be a member of society. When you have a kid, all the other kids' parents are there, and then your kid's going to hate you because, Dad, why don't you go? I go, I don't like the other parents. All right. But how come they like each other? See? Facts. I'm talking about facts. That's why there's police body cam footage. You can't fake that. That's from body cam. So addictive. If you don't go, you become shut in. It's part of it. You're going to be one of those people, I don't want to be one of those people where my neighbors don't know who I was. I was kind of a shut-in. Something was happening in his house, but we didn't quite know what. I didn't see that, but now that he's been arrested, I can see that now. Now that he's been arrested, I can see why. I don't want to be one of those people, all right? Understood. Jody writes in understood. Okay, I think I went too far. Does your wife's family accept you? Yeah, that's not a problem. I'm accepted. I mean, I didn't get married until I was 46. I'm surprised that anybody would accept me, but I'm accepted. I can go over anytime I want. I can have, heart-to-heart discussions with, Kanai's dad if I wanted to, if I choose to. But I stopped drinking beer. I stopped drinking alcohol, and he likes his alcohol, so there's that. He likes to pour the beers. That's alcohol consumption is a way that no-me communication. Drinking and communicating is a thing. If you stop drinking and smoking, then I don't smoke. I rarely drink, then you stop communicating if you stop drinking. That's also a problem that I have right now, because I don't like to go out and drinking. You go out with people drinking and they start drinking. Alcohol might be nice and all that, but nothing good comes from it. In the end, nothing good comes from it. So I kind of stopped, mostly. Older Gen X here. I might be on the older end of the Gen X. I don't know, 74. What do you think? I grew up in the 80s with Goonies and stuff, okay? Look at that bird. Look at that birdie. What kind of bird is that? Look at that. How you doing? I know, I'm talking about the declining birth rate. If there aren't more people here, they're not going to feed you bread. I'm trying to get it up, okay? We're doing our part, birdie. It's a good looking bird. That's what I said. That's what I just said. Consuming alcohol is a waste, in my opinion. But in Japan, it's a part of communication. So just to sum this all up and put a ribbon in all of this, including this rant, look, I don't see Japan's birth rate. So that is not Toby in disguise. And for anybody who's a member, you will be able to have Toby in your little emoji there. If you have the Toby emoji, please show it as a respect for the crows so they don't attack me here. Nice weather you're having there and a rant. Yes, look, I don't see Japan's birth rate turning around anytime soon. Japan does not need to have immigration coming here either. The vast majority of work can be done by bringing in people from outside, and they're doing that. From South India, they're filling in the holes in the service industry. Convenience stores, supermarkets, stocking and staffing. But the supermarkets are going to be self-run. Right now, they're grooming people to self-checkout. This is not just in Japan, this is all over the world. This isn't about replacing staff to get out of paying wages completely. For Japan, it's different. It's more about not being able to hire anybody to take these jobs and getting them people to check out. So there's just going to be people that are stocking the shelves, and soon we're going to have humanoid robots doing that. I'd say in the next 15 years, humanoid robots will be able to stack shelves and do remedial tasks like that. So Japan doesn't want to get into immigration where that could change the culture of the country too much. They don't need to. Once the population, they get over this population hump and it starts to leveling out, and then, they're getting back to a positive just because the baby boomers are gone, I think that Japan will be maybe in a pretty good situation. But it's all about maintaining the culture that they have as well. When you bring in people from abroad, Japan is not a mixing pot. It's not a melting pot like the United States. That's not Japan. Look, I had this discussion with somebody that older Japanese guy, a really deep discussion, and one of his ideas was people that are coming here to move, including English teachers, because we talked about it. When you come in here, you should take a class on societal integration, on how to integrate into Japanese society so that you understand how Japanese society works, so you don't go against the grain, and make this like a prerequisite at immigrations when you come in, maybe, so that it's a really smooth transition, so people get an understanding of here. Because I know the long-term expats that live here in Japan, like for 30 years, people like me, we're pretty much integrated into Japanese society. You can look at the views a lot better looking than me right now. So it just, those that are coming here in the first 5 years, if you learn how to integrate into Japanese society, it takes away a lot of the problems because you understand why things are happening, right? Assimilate, yeah, exactly. So there you go. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I gotta get going here, but I'm happy that you guys are, this is a really important topic, and yeah, I found out I got a meeting here. I gotta go to a meeting. I just forgot I had a meeting. All right, guys, this went on way too long. See ya in another live stream. Leave me a comment below if you'd like to. Mata ne.